Well, the sources really do delve into police actions and crime rates. A very prominent argument you hear is that Black men in America commit far more crimes than any other demographic group.
Okay, that's a statistical claim they make.
Yes, and based on that, they argue individuals should be removed from society based on their actions, not their race. It's presented as a call for individual accountability over group identity.
And tied directly to that is a strong critique of certain policies.
Very strong. What they term the leftist policy of letting crazy people out of prison or just not prosecuting them in the first place.
And they link this policy directly.
Increases in violent crime. They cite specific, vivid examples like Black men pushing people onto subway tracks as consequences of these policies.
And this connects to another argument. One source called it awesomely true.
Ah, yes. The idea that many policies that have been implemented by the left, often with the best intentions, have a disproportionately negative effect on Black America.
So good intentions, bad outcomes.
That's the contention, yeah. Particularly for this demographic.
Okay. Now, what about the highly debated topic of reparations? How do these sources handle that?
They are, let's say, highly critical.
Critical in what way?
Well, one person quoted claims his own family history. Moving to non-slave states or immigrating after slavery means they are, quote, completely clean of any responsibility.
Okay.
And then there's this provocative idea floated that every Black person in America to some degree has slave owner ancestry.
Leading to the suggestion
that, in a sense, you should pay reparations to yourself. It's clearly meant to challenge the premise.
Right. And they also mention existing efforts.
Yeah, existing Black charities, scholarship, those are brought up as examples of things that function like reparations already.
Now, this brings up an important counter-argument these sources make regarding the concept of white privilege. How do they address it?
They generally refute it, flat out.
Refute it how?
They argue that any perceived advantages aren't really about race. They're better defined as wealth privilege, regional privilege, athletic privilege, or other privileges totally unrelated to race.
So privilege exists, just not based on whiteness per se.
That's their argument. And they make the assertion that after the early 1980s, things in America have generally been adequately fair.
Adequately fair, okay.
Right.
And this discussion extends to affirmative action as well.
It does. The argument presented is that affirmative action ultimately hurts the people that it's supposed to protect.
How does it hurt them, according to these sources?
By attaching a stigma, hindering personal growth. The implication, as they present it, is that Black professionals might be unfairly perceived as diversity hires.
All right.
Which undermines their actual accomplishments and qualifications.
I see. And finally, do they offer any solution or direct proposals?
Oh, absolutely. Quite direct, sometimes stark proposals for addressing crime and also fostering self-esteem. Suggestions like abolishing the welfare state entirely, reinstating cash bail, adopting a, quote, heavy hand with criminals.
About heavy hand.
Even to the point of indefinite imprisonment for severe violent acts. The underlying emphasis, though, across these proposals is on cultivating morality, duty, self-respect, things they see as crucial for strengthening communities from within.
Okay, we've covered a lot of ground there on policy, societal issues. Now, these sources, they frequently use prominent political figures to illustrate their points, don't they, about race and politics?
Constantly, yeah.
Let's look at some of those key examples. Kanye West comes up quite a bit.
He does. They tracked his political evolution pretty closely.
What do they highlight?
His belief that Black people shouldn't be exclusively Democrat, his embrace of America First policies, and, of course, his outspoken support for Donald Trump.
Right, the Manji hat incident.
Exactly. Whom he views as a great leader and says wearing the hat makes him feel powerful.
And it's fascinating to trace that evolution they describe. His initial belief, the famous George Bush hates Black people line.
Right.
That shifted significantly, which he later attributed, didn't he, to being brainwashed by the left.
That's what he said, yeah. And he also asserts that point we heard earlier. The word racism is used to control Black people, echoing that sentiment.
Okay. And another key figure for these sources is Larry Elder.
Yes, the Black conservative who ran for California governor, he's a central figure.
And they focus on how he's portrayed.
Very much so. They critique how the LA Times portrayed him, the blackface of white supremacy label.
Wow.
And how his smile was described as smug. This is countered in the sources by the claim that Elder's smile is actually genuine, and that the criticism itself is an insult to leftist communist politics. Pretty strong counterpunch.
And Elder's own arguments are highlighted too.
Yeah.
Against systemic racism.
Heavily highlighted. Sources often cite his point that young black men are 8 times more likely to be killed by another young black man than by a young white man.
Right.
He's consistently presented as opposing frameworks like critical...
Which, just for clarity, these sources generally interpret as analyzing how race and racism shape legal systems and society.
Right, that's their interpretation. And he's also shown opposing certain reparations.
So this brings us to a kind of broader view of black conservatives presented in these sources. How were they generally framed?
Generally as impressive people.
Impressive why?
Admired not just because they're seen as rare, but specifically for actively challenging what are seen as conventional narratives about race and politics.
Okay.
And the sources quite strongly criticize what they term the patronizing view that Democrat politicians hold with black Americans.
Patronizing how?
Suggesting Democrats just assume black voters will automatically obey and don't do crazy things like think for yourself. It's positioned as a direct challenge to perceived political assumptions and groupthink.
Oh.
Yeah.
This deep dive has certainly illuminated some intense, often conflicting, and frankly, sometimes uncomfortable conversations happening around race, identity, and policy in America, all drawn directly from these varied sources we've looked at.
Absolutely. We've seen how terms we think we understand, like racism or privilege, are not only debated but actively redefined within these specific discussions. Mm-hmm. We've explored how cultural practices get scrutinized, sometimes quite harshly, and how prominent political figures become these sort of focal points or maybe lightning rods for much broader societal discussions and disagreements.
And what seems clear, listening across these sources, is they present a pretty consistent, unified argument, wouldn't you say?
I think so, yeah.
That many of the challenges faced by black Americans today are rooted, in their view, in internal cultural issues and specific policy choices,
right,
rather than solely or even primarily stemming from what gets called white systemic racism.
That's the core argument. And flowing from that, they really stress the importance of individual accountability. And they advocate strongly for a shift away from what they consistently term victimhood methods.
Indeed. And I think one crucial takeaway, listening to them, is their strong call for critical thinking.
Yes.
Urging individuals, urging you, the listener perhaps, to rely more on your own experiences, your own observations.
Rather than just uncritically accepting group narratives wherever they come from.
Right. And to judge people based on individual moral character, they keep saying, rather than on race alone.
That's a constant refrain.
So what does this all mean for you, our listener, taking all this in? Well, perhaps it's an invitation. An invitation to consider how deeply ingrained narrative on all sides might influence our understanding of really complex issues. Mm-hmm. And maybe the sheer value of seeking out diverse perspectives, even the ones that make us uncomfortable.
Yeah, especially those sometimes. And if we try to connect this to the bigger picture, it really does raise a fundamental question, doesn't it? Which is, in this world that's just saturated with information, with strong viewpoints, bombarding us constantly, how do we actually cultivate the discernment, the critical thinking skills to truly understand societal challenges?
Right.
And then how do we work towards solutions that might actually benefit everyone, neither because of our differences nor in spite of them, but just solutions that work?
It's a challenge to think for ourselves, isn't it? A lot to ponder there.